Good day wishes to you all. Continuing our discussion on the probe labeling. The simplest form of labeling DNA is by 5' or 3' end labeling. The 5' end labeling, as you see in the figure, it involves a phosphate transfer or exchange reaction wherein the 5' phosphate of the DNA, which is to be used as the probe, is removed, and in its place we add or we place a labeled phosphate. So usually it is a P32 which is added to the reaction. Now this is associated, or the reaction is carried out by the presence of two important enzymes. Number 1, alkaline phosphatase, and number 2, polynucleotide kinase. So the first enzyme, that is alkaline phosphatase, is used to remove the existing phosphate group from the DNA. Then following the removal of these phosphate group or the released phosphate group from the DNA, a second enzyme, that is the polynucleotide kinase, is added. Now this enzyme catalyzes the transfer of P32 labeled phosphate group to the 5' end of the DNA. Right. So the newly labeled probe is then purified, usually by using the chromatographic techniques, that is more specifically the Cephedex columns, or it may be used directly without going for any purification. Similar to the preparation of probe labeled at 5' end, we have a preparation method for probe labeled at 3' end. Labeling the 3' end of the DNA molecule is slightly less complex than the previous one. What happens here? A newly labeled deoxyribonucleoside triphosphate, that is DNTP, it is labeled using a P32 DATP or even a fluorescent probe. Now this is added to the 3' end of the DNA using an enzyme, that is terminal transferase. This is clearly shown in the figure. Although this reaction is very simple, there exists a problem. The potential problem which exists between, or the reason for this problem, is because a new nucleotide is being added to the existing sequence, so that alters a complete sequence of the DNA. And naturally, when there is alteration in the complete sequence, so that may affect the hybridization to its target sequence. So end labeling methods also suffer from the fact that only one label is added to the DNA, so they are of lower activity in comparison to methods which incorporate labels along the length of the DNA. So this is the important disadvantage when compared to any of the other methods which incorporate labels along the length of the DNA, because these end labeling methods, they label, or the fact is that only one label is added to the DNA. Now we have another labeling method, that is using random hexanucleotides. The DNA to be labeled is first denatured, and then it is placed under renaturing conditions in the presence of a mixture of many different random sequences of hexamers, or we call it as hexanucleotides. So it is a factor of chance, that is, we call it as by chance. So these hexamers will by chance bind to the DNA sample when they encounter a complementary sequence, and thus the DNA will rapidly acquire an approximately random sprinkling of the hexanucleotides annealed to it. That means there will be an extension. Only it is by chance the binding of the DNA sample with the hexamers or hexanucleotides happen. Now these hexamers, they act as a primer for the synthesis of a fresh strand of DNA, and this reaction is catalyzed by the DNA polymerase for the reason that it has an exposed 3' hydroxyl group, so which you can observe in the figure. Now the Klenow fragment of DNA polymerase is used for random primer labeling because it lacks 5' to 3' exonuclease activity. Now this is prepared by cleavage of DNA polymerase with subtilisin, giving a large enzyme fragment which has no 5' to 3' exonuclease activity but still act as a 5' to 3' polymerase. So when you mix, that means when the Klenow enzyme is mixed with the unhealed DNA sample in the presence of DNTPs, which include or must include at least one DNTP to be labeled, many short stretches of labeled DNA will be generated. So in a similar way to random primer labeling, we have the polymerase chain reaction. So even this PCR may also be used to incorporate radioactive or non-radioactive labels. Right. Next we have the Nick translation. So we have been trying to understand different approaches for labeling the DNA. We saw the 5' labeling, the 3' labeling, and labeling using the random hexamers, and now we have the Nick translation labeling of the DNA. A traditional method of labeling DNA is by the process of Nick translation. So it is one of the traditional way of or approach to label the DNA. Now here the low concentration of the enzyme DNase 1, they are used to make occasional single strand nicks or breaks in the double stranded DNA, which is supposed to be used as the gene probe. Now the DNA polymerase, then it fills the gaps or the nicks using appropriate DNTP. So at the same time making a new nick to the 3' side of the previous one. So in this way the nick is translated along the DNA. If labeled DNTPs are added to the reaction mixture, then they will be used to fill the nicks as shown in the figure. So in this way the DNA can be labeled to a very highly specific activity. So if you just recollect the table of the previous session, various DNA labeling methods are summarized over there. Right. So this is about the probe labeling or the DNA labeling. Now we have the most important technique of the molecular biology, the polymerase chain reaction. A number of, or there have been a number of key developments in the field of molecular biology, but as we know, one technique has made a significant impact, that is the polymerase chain reaction, or abbreviated as PCR. And one of the reasons for the adoption of this technology is the elegant simplicity of the reaction, and it is relatively easy with respect to performing, that is practical steps, and it is frequently one of the first technique used when people started analyzing the DNA, and it has opened up the analysis of cellular and molecular processes to those outside the field of molecular biology. So now it is no more within the framework of molecular biology. Basically, the PCR is a technique used to amplify a precise fragment of DNA from a complex mixture of the source or the starting material. Usually we term it as the template DNA. And in many cases it requires little DNA purification. That means the DNA, if the DNA is pure, that is always the best, or maybe the purification can be 25 to 30%. That is more than sufficient. But it definitely requires the knowledge of the DNA sequence information which flanks the fragment of DNA to be amplified. That means if you are trying to amplify a segment or fragment of DNA about 20 or 15 bases, the sequence which is flanking on either side of the DNA to be amplified, or we call it as the target DNA, the knowledge of the DNA sequence information which flanks on either side of the target DNA is very much required, right? That means the information of the target DNA sequences on either side of the DNA sequence, that is called as the target DNA sequence, to be amplified. So that information is required. From this information, two oligonucleotide primers can be chemically synthesized, because you know the sequence information flanking the target DNA. Then you design the primer, and then you can amplify so the target DNA is also amplified. So from this information, two oligonucleotide primers are synthesized, that is chemically synthesized, and each one of them complementary to a stretch of DNA to the 3' side of the target DNA, and one oligonucleotide for each of the two DNA strands, right? So further reagents required for the PCR, they include the enzyme for amplification, that is DNA polymerase, and the source nucleotides, that is dNTP, that is the building blocks of DNA in equimolar amounts. Usually the range is 50 to 200 micromolar. Since we are using the enzyme, a appropriate buffer system, especially for the enzyme, is required. And this is usually optimized for the magnesium concentration, that is in the range of 0.5 to 5 millimolar. This is a very critical component of the PCR reaction. Why it is so? It not only affects the enzyme, but it also affects the primer or the template binding, and third one, effective incorporation of the DNTPs, or else which together they form a soluble complex. So magnesium concentration optimization is very critical whenever you design a PCR program or the PCR reaction step. The concentration is usually between 0.5 to 5 millimolar and it has to be optimized within this range. It is critical for the following reasons. Number one, it not only affects the enzyme activity, that means it is having the ability to affect the enzyme activity, because without magnesium the enzyme is not active. And second, the primer template binding is also affected. And the third, the incorporation of DNTPs, the effective incorporation of DNTPs is also affected. So that's the reason why magnesium is very critical. We have been hearing many times people say that amplification is not happening even after the PCR reaction about 40 cycles or 42 cycles. The first and foremost reason could be the magnesium, which may not be optimized for a given reaction. So the PCR may be sort of a technique which is analogous to the DNA replication process which takes place in the cells, for the reason that the outcome is the same, that is generation of new complementary DNA stretches based on the existing ones. So in replication process which happens in the cell, you find the generation of new DNA, and in PCR it is that means the outcome is the same, that is generation of new complementary DNA. So this PCR is a technique that has in many cases replaced the traditional DNA cloning methods, since it fulfills the same function. So the production of large amount of DNA from limited starting material, but achieves this in a fraction of the time needed to clone a DNA fragment. So the time required to clone a DNA fragment is more when compared to the amplification of the DNA using PCR. So PCR, though it amplifies the DNA from limited starting material, but it can achieve this target in a fraction of time when compared to cloning a DNA fragment. Although it has several advantages, it is a technology, so it comes with few drawbacks. But still PCR is a remarkable development which is changing the approach of many scientists to the analysis of nucleic acids and continues to have a profound impact on the core areas in the field of biosciences and biotechnology. Right? So if you just look at the typical steps or the stages and components of the PCR, the PCR consists of three defined sets of times and temperatures, which are termed as denaturation, annealing, and extension. So you can carefully observe in the figure. We have the denaturation, annealing, and extension, and it is a cycle. So all these three completes or make one PCR cycle. And each of these steps is repeated for at least 30 to 40 times, which we call it as cycles, or that means 30 cycles to 40 cycles. In heating the reaction to about 90 degrees centigrade, the DNA starts to unwind. So that is the beginning of the PCR cycle. And then the reaction mixture is cooled, and then the reaction mixture is allowed for extension. So this is the overall idea of one cycle of PCR. So the region within the complex DNA which has to be specifically amplified, or we call it as target DNA, so that is made accessible. The precise temperature is critical, and each PCR system has to be defined and optimized. So it's all about temperature. So precise temperature is very critical, and each of the step, denaturation, annealing and extension, each of these PCR step or the system has to be defined and optimized. If you do not optimize, or if the reactions are not optimized, that may give rise to other DNA products in addition to the specific target, or may not produce any amplified products at all. So the first critical point is the magnesium. Second critical point is the temperature, the precise temperature for each PCR reaction or the system or the steps. The annealing step allows the hybridization of two oligonucleotide primers which are present in excess. That means the oligonucleotide primer should be present in excess so that they bind to the or to their complementary sites that flank the target DNA on either side. The annealed oligonucleotides, they act as primers for DNA synthesis since they provide a free 3' hydroxyl group for the enzyme DNA polymerase. Now the DNA synthesis step is termed extension, and it is carried out by a thermostable DNA polymerase. Most commonly or conventionally used enzyme is the Taq DNA polymerase. Now the DNA synthesis proceeds from both 3' end of the primers until the new strands have been extended along and beyond the target DNA. Now it is important to note that since the new strands extend beyond the target DNA, they will continue to grow, and they contain a region near their 3' end which is complementary to the other primer. So thus, if another round of DNA synthesis is allowed to take place, the new strands as well as the original strands will be used as templates. So these strands by themselves become templates for the next cycle or the second PCR cycle and subsequent cycles. Most interesting feature is that the products obtained from the new strands will have a precise length, delimited exactly by the two regions which are complementary to the primers. There will be an exponential increase in the amount of DNA produced in case of PCR. So the increase is exponential, 1 raised to the power of. The net effect is to selectively amplify the target DNA and the primer regions which are flanking on either side. Earlier, or the early PCR reactions, the problem with the early PCR reactions was that the temperature needed to denature the DNA also denatured the polymerases. So that was a limitation in early PCR reactions. So it was also denaturing the polymerases. Now, since we have the thermostable DNA polymerase enzyme, when the technique came into existence, they were suffering, or the reaction was suffering from the polymerase which was denatured at high temperatures. But now there are several thermostable polymerases, and most commonly used is the Taq DNA polymerase, which has a temperature optimum at 72 degrees centigrade, and it can survive even the temperatures as high as 96 degree centigrade. So it remains active after each of the denaturation steps. And if you think that if you can automate the system, so that is the reason why the technique is widespread in its utility, because or due to the ability to automate the reaction. And today we see many thermal cyclers have been produced in which it is possible for you to program the temperatures and time for a particular PCR reaction. Right. If you just look at this slide, you will find some of the important or the species from which the thermostable DNA polymerase has been isolated and being commercially used. A number of thermostable DNA polymerases other than the early PCR reactions used, that is the Thermus aquaticus, that is Taq polymerase, and they have been discovered, and today we see them being used extensively, be it from Thermococcus litoralis, or you have Pyrococcus furiosus, Thermococcus thioreducens, many of them, right? So this tells us the important development that is being made in upgrading or updating the PCR reaction. An interesting feature of thermostable DNA polymerases, especially from Thermus thermophilus, is the ability of this enzyme, especially from this species. It is having the ability to carry out even reverse transcription reaction. So following cDNA synthesis and the chelation of magnesium ion, the polymerase is able to carry out the polymerization of the template. So it is having dual function. Number one, polymerization. Number two, reverse transcription reaction. So this dual activity of this thermophilus DNA polymerase, it allows RNA PCR to be carried out in a single tube, and it obviates the need for a separate cDNA synthesis reaction. So that is the beauty of this particular polymerase from this species, that is Thermus thermophilus. So you can have the dual activity with respect to Thermus thermophilus DNA polymerase, so that it allows RNA PCR to be carried out in a single tube, and there is no need for a separate cDNA synthesis reaction. So with this, I'll stop my discussion over here. We can continue our discussion in the next session. Thank you very much.